Equipping Church Leaders East Africa, or ECLEA. Our website is eclea.net. What we do is we teach pastors and church leaders all over East Africa. And for the last 17 years, I've been making 5 trips to East Africa each year. I've been in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi. I've not yet been to DRC, but my partner is going there this December. Some of our Kenyan pastors and trainees have been to South Sudan, so that's what I do.
Thank you. Can you tell us, because I know you already learned about Nyerere.
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us his leadership, especially in international politics?
Yes. I mean, we're here. By the way, I was invited to come here by Bishop Stephen Sampala, who is my Uganda National Director. He is the head of the Joseph Academy, which had a presentation here. But anyway, I mean, we're here because obviously celebrating Mwalimu's the 25th anniversary of his death and of the East Africa community. And of course, he is most well known, and what has been celebrated here is his advocacy of East African unity and integration, which is a wonderful thing. But you know, some of the speakers pointed out there are some practical problems of implementing that, and that's one of the things that actually ties into what I do. I can expand on that if you would like, because you know, I've been around East Africa enough to know that the cultures throughout East Africa are very, very similar. Although the languages may be somewhat different, most people in Uganda don't speak Kiswahili and so on, and likewise in Rwanda and Burundi. Nevertheless, the cultures themselves are very similar. The problems people face are very similar. As a result, there is great wisdom in Mwalimu's push for political and economic integration, which was his main focus. And I think as one gets, economically he wanted a common currency, and as one gets that, and as trade barriers go down and so on and so forth, there'll be much greater movement across national border lines, which will help integrate social integration. And some of the speakers here today talked about they may be Tanzanian, but they've gone to Makerere University in Kampala. And so there's already just a lot of social integration, and the cultures are very similar. The problem that I see, and this is one of the things that in my capacity in with ECLEA in teaching pastors and church leaders, that's actually one of the messages that I preach in a somewhat different context. Namely, I deal with all kinds of different churches and denominations, from Pentecostals to Anglicans and all points in between. And one of the things that I point out is that Christ has called us to be one, just like He and the Father are one. And Paul points out in Galatians that there is no Jew or Gentile, no slave or free, no male or female. We are all one in Christ Jesus. But the problem is that many churches don't have any practical relations or work with other churches, particularly churches of other denominations. And that's the same kind of thing that I think Mwalimu was getting at here on the national level. And what I would say is that in terms of practicalities, one can always force integration, and yet you're going to get some pushback from that. I mean, there's always the issue of how much power is going to be concentrated in national hands, because one of the things that is true historically everywhere is people in power don't want to give it up. Um, and uh, and for example, one of the things in the European Union now, uh, Belgium, that entity is having the national unity is imposing restrictions and rules on a number of the member states that are not liked, and so Britain has gotten out of the euro, has gone back to the pound, and so there's always going to be an issue of you can force people to unify, but that's not the kind of unity that Mulimu was pushing, and that's where I think that what I do can make a real difference because in Christianity is what I call an inside-out religion. When somebody becomes a Christian, unlike most other religions, which basically are a set of rules that you have to follow and behavior, when Christ comes into a person, he changes the person from the inside out. And so we develop a new set of values and priorities. And as that happens, it will naturally change our behaviors. Now, as I pointed out, I see that even in the churches, there is difficulty in getting people to work together. But I'm starting to see it, and so it seems to me that since, other than in Somalia, Christianity is the majority religion throughout East Africa, there Mwalimu's desire for political, economic, and social integration can be furthered as the people take the gospel deep into themselves. Then Mwalimu's dream can be realized organically and naturally.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
So, one question.
Yeah.
What can we buy into the integration of the United States? I hear you come from the United States,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
What can we buy into their integration? Different cultures, different from a different descent. What can we buy into that so that East Africa can be integrated?
Okay. I mean, some of the same problems that I talked about are going on in the U.S. now. In that the way the United States was set up was that the national government would have strict and defined powers so that the different states, which had fairly different cultures, would maximize their authority and yet still be within one national framework.
Oh,
And so, I mean, we ended up fighting a civil war over the issue of slavery. Well, but when that was taken care of, I mean, I think there was much greater integration of all of the states in our union. But now, particularly over the course of the last 50 or 60 years, the national government has slowly by slowly, and now not so slowly, gotten much, much more power. And so I think we're seeing a fundamental change in the nature of our union. And that is something that I think that East Africa has to be aware of. Because right now you've got separate states. If they're integrated, the question will be along what lines and how much power are you going to cede to a national or international authority. I mean, for the United States, we've been around for about 250 years, but in the last 50 years, the pace of federal or national control has skyrocketed, and that's a problem that I think you will have to face.
thank you.
Yep.